What's up, everybody? Well, we're about to tackle the, I think, second last episode here. And the last one will straight up quit the challenge. So, not sure what it is that we're going to be talking about or doing in this episode. But this is all still part of the best shape of my life. I intend to comment on it. So, let's watch it. I'll make comments on it just like always. So, let's get right into it, shall we?
In 2017, I was on the jury at the Cannes Film Festival. It was day 5, and we'd already watched 14 movies. With one more movie to watch before dinner, I needed a beat to be quiet and reset. I had 30 minutes to hit the gym before rejoining the jury. I had told myself that this was my time, for me, and I had promised myself that I would not allow anyone to infringe on it. Midway through my second set, a 30-something black dude with a British accent entered and immediately noticed me. He whipped out his phone as he approached. "Hey, Will," he said, "say hi to my cousin." I reached up, putting my hand over the lens of his camera and pushed it down. "Hey, sorry, man," I said. "I'm training right now." "Oh, it's just a quick video, Will," he said. "My cousin has Down syndrome. He loves you. I promise it'll be quick. The Fresh Prince is the only thing that makes him smile." "I'm sorry, man," I said, "but no." He looked at me with such disbelief. "But why not, Will?" I paused. I searched for the deepest, most honest answer, because I don't want to. The man shook his head in disgust, turned, and left the gym. I knew I had done right by myself, but I hated that someone else, an innocent, had gotten caught in the crossfire of my internal war. I went back to my room and could not stop crying.
So Will let us in and has agreed to shoot, but some executives here from the production company. So I guess we'll see how this plays out.
When you're trying to drop weight and you're trying to be at a deficit and you're trying to write your memoir at the same time, it's everything you have.
Yeah.
Right? And a deadline, right? I'm doing something that's important to me right now. Leave me alone.
I want to make art and I want to create. Like, don't tell me about the schedule. I don't want the show or something. Like, that mindset is disruptive to me in the creative process.
The journey itself of my actual transformation and the show have somehow gotten out of sync.
I think anytime that you're embarking on a journey of this sort, it's about transformation, right?
Yeah.
It's like I lost my guys a little bit. And they became company men.
I think when we talked, I feel like we talked on December 26th or whatever, you thought the show will keep me accountable for the journey.
Right, yeah. It's like I'm not trying to make a show. I'm trying to do what I'm doing, shoot it, and you make a show. Right?
Yep.
Right?
The budget, the deadline, they'll get what we give them.
I think there's a lot of interesting things he's saying here about the concept of boundaries and accountability, and also about, I guess, perspective. Because he said that, I lost my guys and you became company men, which I guess is an allusion to the idea that, like, he had these people with him not because they were pushing a certain agenda, but because they were partaking in this journey with him. And now he feels like they are simply there to facilitate some sort of schedule and to make sure that the product makes it to market, which makes the whole concept feel like it's been bastardized to him, which I totally understand. And I think the frustration he's feeling about that and how disruptive that can be to him, for his sanity with the crazy schedule he's keeping. I'm sure it's hard to keep your sanity, keep your head screwed on straight. Makes it very difficult. And then to speak to the idea of boundaries, which he mentions in the opening about having to tell that guy no. And it's a difficult thing, I think, for a normal person to wrap their head around. Because the moment, we see them, we assume that because they are not in their homes, they are ready and able and willing to be interacted with, which may very well not be the case, because they still have to live their life. And maybe sometimes they just want to be chill and live their life and not be accosted by people, no matter what the reason is. Because if they say yes to you, then it's yes to the next guy and the next guy and the next guy, because you are not the only person with a dog who has a game leg, who, howls at the Fresh Prince, or a kid who has a terminal disease, or a father who is estranged from his son, so on and so forth. There's a story and a person that can be repeated and replicated over and over and over and over again. And I'm sure on his end, like, there's a billion of us and one of him. And that's not to speak to the idea that like he is like special or magical, but that just in terms of the number of people he has to encounter who may very well have that scenario looming behind them, around them, as part of their story for why they want to interact with him, it's countless and it's never ending. And you just want to live. And so I get it. I totally get it. And honestly, I think it is a lot more difficult than we might give allowance for, the idea of managing your public persona and your public duties as an entertainer, as a performer, and just being a guy who maybe wants to take a few seconds and get his head right for a workout. I use workouts for, my own sanity too. And so I can only imagine what it would be like if every workout I tried to do, that wasn't in like a personal gym that I built where only I could go in, was liable to be interrupted by some person for some reason at any given point in time. That would just be so frustrating. So I totally get it. But let's get back into it. I think we're going to have a lot more to tackle here. I think this is going to be a very psychological episode, a lot about the psychology of like managing yourself against your goals, and, being realistic about timelines and deadlines, and managing allostatic load. As far as stress is concerned, allostatic load is extremely important, a very important concept to understand. And I think we're going to get a lot of talk and a lot of examples about how that works, and how you manage it.
Will is really, in a very real way, committing to the idea that he cannot sacrifice his mental health in the name of these other sorts of journeys that he wants to go on. Because let me tell you, on mental health, there's not as many second chances.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 weeks.
16 weeks, right? So that's supposed to be roughly 205. I'm not gonna be 205.
No, you're not.
And the thing that I'm trying to do also is to not tap into my old mindset, because I can do anything when I, tap into that soldier.
Right. So
Right.
it's not about the
Yeah.
harsh energy. It's
Your
more
harsh,
about
yeah, a more sustainable mindset.
Two or 5.4, that one said, right?
Yeah, it was two. So it was.
can go
We're
with
gonna
the
take the.
0.3.
We're going with the. We'll go with the 205.4. Give me a little cushion for next week.
My first impulse is always to clean up the truth in my mind. I redesign it and replace it with whatever suits me, or really whatever suits you. I'm a crowd pleaser. I'm a master storyteller. I thought about showing you the flawless diamond, a swaggy, unbreakable winner, a fantasy image of a successful human being. The truth is whatever I decide to make you believe, and I will make you believe it. That's what I do. Of course, there's the red carpet walking, tight fade wearing, box office record breaking, I am legend, pull up doing, jiggy ass Will Smith. And then there's me. This book is about me.
Did you feel like you had an option as to whether to be there or to choose to leave?
I said, no, I'm not going to do this with my children there. No, this is, I'm not going to make them more upset with me screaming and hollering.
One of the things you said that was really strong, too, you said part of the reason that you were standing up to Daddy is because you knew your kids were...
Yeah, yes.
You knew your kids could hear, and you knew your kids could see.
Yes.
And she wanted us to think he wasn't hurting her.
Yeah. Maybe had I been more submissive, things may have been different. And I grit my teeth and buckle down. My children aren't going to be more rattled because I'm rattled.
That's so powerful. Simultaneously, you were teaching him that that's not how you treat a woman.
That was the only time in my life that I ever considered.
Yes.
That was the only time in my life that I ever thought about, because it was all my failure in my mind.
He watched his mother be physically abused. There was this real sense of fear. His father held the family in sort of the throes of fear, so everybody would sort of snap to it. In order for a child to survive that, they better have a rich imaginary world. So he got to take his imaginary world, the place he worked stuff through, and turned it into entertainment. Will quitting the show may look like a failure to a lot of people, but there's actually another way to look at it, as a breakthrough. Perhaps for the first time, Will is choosing himself. He's not hiding behind humor or control or the idea of winning. Instead, he's giving himself space to process and deal with his past.
I think that perfectly speaks to the translation that I created for the scene where he says that he's quitting in the last episode. I'm going to paraphrase it because there's no way I'm going to be able to just verbatim pop it off. But generally speaking, I said that it was translation was, I've put too much on my plate. I've created too crazy a schedule. I have realized that these things are not, I can't rectify any of these with each other. Like they conflict with each other. And they've created a situation wherein I cannot be successful at all of them simultaneously. And as a result, I'm quitting because I know that I found something I can actually can't do, which probably, on some level annoys him. But, you know, I do agree with her. I do think that for someone like Will, the idea of going, all right, screw this, I got to take one of these crazy things off my plate. I have to actually, like, release something so that I could be at peace, find more balance. That's huge. And that's something that a lot of people can learn from. And again, it's one of the reasons why I felt like this was such an important and good series, especially when it gets authentic and real and grounded. It shows us these things, these necessary elements. It's important to find balance between one's hectic schedule in life and one's personal needs. And you have to create boundary lines. You have to draw out, what will be inside and what will be outside, and like be very clear about what falls in either category. And it can be tempting when things come up that either speak to your ambitions or speak to your more base self, or maybe previous patterns, to let them in and overcrowd that which is inside. But in so doing, it leads to self-destruction. And so yeah, I agree with her. This is a successful moment. This is a good thing. So yeah, this is good. All right, let's see what else we learned from this episode.
Okay.
All right, well, that's the end of the episode. Are we gonna meet Will's dad next? Are we gonna meet the man who basically, and this is my opinion here, again, I'm not a psychologist, the man who I'm pretty sure crafted the general, um and Mr. Fluffy for that matter. But yeah, this is gonna be interesting. So yeah, I was right. This is very much a psychological episode. This is about the sort of mind game and the mind work that goes into establishing a sense of balance. Um, there's a lot of different um, areas, a lot of different worlds of practice, or schools of thought that talk about the importance of your sort of inner workings and the sort of psychological, the mental game that goes into, making things on the outside function as you feel they should. Um, in the world of fitness, it's no different. I often say that as a personal trainer, half my job is the training part, the other part is the personal part, where it's about the person, and that person has a life and a mind and feelings and emotions. And when you show up to a session, you you could be very dealing with a very different kind of session than you thought you were going to have 5 minutes before they arrived. You could have thought burpees and sprints and lifts and whatever, and it could just be like very basic machine work and some very simple compound movements while they try to vent to you and sort through their day and their problems and their issues by talking to you and bouncing ideas off of you. And what they need that day is not a bust their ass workout. What they need is a conversation, because they need to work out what's going on in here so that all of this can function appropriately. Because stress and anxiety and that sort of thing can wreak havoc with you physically. I'm not going to go through the laundry list of ways that's possible, because if you really want to know, I mean, if I'm feeling so inclined, perhaps I'll find some sort of study or something, or maybe I'll do an editor's note thing somewhere. I don't know. I'll figure it out. Point is, there's a lot of stuff on this out there that you can find about, the effects of stress on hormone levels, on digestion, on it's basically stresses interactions with your nervous system. It's your nervous system that's really going to respond to the stress response, and like, have a switch from the parasympathetic to the sympathetic nervous system. I digress. Point is, the mind and the body are connected and very harmoniously need to work together. If one is out of whack, the other is not going to be responding appropriately. You need to deal with both of them as an interconnected unit, and sometimes that means a workout isn't a workout. It is a sort of not a physical workout anyway, it's a mental workout. It's, you know, working out what's going on in your head, in your life, in your mind, and trying to find some sort of peace. Not because, again, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, but as a friendly ear. And, kind of like how a barber or a bartender hears a lot of stories, and a lot of stories have very similar threads, and those similar threads seem to lead to similar endings and have similar beginnings, because we hear these stories and deal with lots of different people and see these threads over and over again and see their beginnings and their middles and their ends so many times. It can be helpful to have the ear of someone like that to help you understand where your thread could possibly be going. Um, and even if not that, just someone who could very kindly listen to what's going on and provide a sounding board so that the person can sort it out themselves, because oftentimes we do possess the wisdom to sort through our own bullshit very efficiently if we let ourselves sort through our own bullshit. We just have to very earnestly and honestly encounter it and then work through it piece by piece, step by step, and be willing to do the work emotionally to parse through it, because that can be very difficult. Um, so yeah, and that seems like what he's finally doing. A lot of the early stages of this documentary seem to be a lot of like just physical, 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 and like try to create and maintain the facade. And now the mental is catching up, and we're starting to kind of get a lot more on the mind work of this. And I think this also speaks a little bit to the sort of like dickhead energy that he had in that last episode, which again, I'm not going to take that back. It does feel like dickhead energy. And sometimes when you have a lot of pent up emotions and you release them in an attempt to finally be true to something that you have been avoiding for a long period of time, it can end up coming out stronger than you intended and being aimed in directions you didn't necessarily intend for them to go in. Um, it doesn't mean that it's like totally justified. It doesn't mean that you're in the right. It just means that that's what happens, and it can be more understandable. And as long as everyone is willing to kind of understand that and acknowledge it and acknowledge their part in it, and you know that it can be, you can get past that. But I think it explains a lot of that, and that it's probably been a long time coming for him to dig his heels in and say, no, I'm not doing this thing, not in this way. And I think that's a lot of what that was. I think a lot of it was this whole, you guys have this idea of like a certain project, a certain polished ideal, polished ideal. I had to read that. You guys have this idea, this polished idea, this sort of artifice that you'd like to create, and you want me to help you create this artifice and then package it and sell it to the world. And I do not want to do that. I want to be real. In fact, maybe this was being foreshadowed for a long time when he was saying like, are we being real here? Are we being honest? He said that a number of times earlier in the series. And I wonder if he was sort of like kind of pointing to that, where he's like, I know we spent a lot of time creating this like fun, fun house mirror version of what I'm actually experiencing, but are we trying to be real here right now? Huh. Maybe that's what was happening there the whole time. Hindsight's 2020. Anyhow, I think that will bring us to the end of the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys liked this episode, if you have any comments about any of the things I said or any things you saw him say that you think maybe I missed, I didn't touch on, or you saw the episode and you're like, what about this little piece? Throw it in the comment section below the video. I'd love to hear from you. I want to have conversations about this sort of thing, because I think this is a great place to jump off and have some important conversations about various things mentally, physically, that happen in the fitness world. So do throw your comments down there. Do let me know how you're feeling. Let's talk about all this crazy stuff. It's really cool stuff, and I think it's important to talk about. Of course, like the video and subscribe to become part of the galaxy. And of course, stay shining, because the galaxy can only be a bright and beautiful place if we all shine together. Peace.